Probably looking for them.
Yeah, I probably met you a long time ago.
So that's right. It's easier to after the event. Apologise after. Yes. Oh, great.
Okay.
I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
I am.
On behalf of the Oxton Society, I'd like to welcome you all here today for this celebration. I'm Jeff Willis, I'm the Vice Chair of the Oxton Society, and the running order is, first of all, we're going to have a word from Dominic, who owns this property, along with his wife Sarah. We're going to hear from Alan Graham, our local councillor. We're going to hear from the grandson of our hero today, George Schultz, who's John Schultz. Put your hand up, John. There he is. And Major Paul Hands, assisted by Captain Robert Barr, are going to do the unveiling. I'll just say a few words about the Oxton Society, which was founded in 1979. It's one of 26 conservation areas in the world, and we've got about 800 members. And our aims are to preserve and enhance the conservation area, and secondly, to raise awareness of the history of Oxton and also to promote community events. In terms of raising awareness on the history, we're well served by a little group in the Oxton Society, the History Group. They produce the brilliantly researched Oxton History periodical, which comes out 4 times a year in the Oxton newsletter. And this is the 5th blue plaque that they've organised, and each time they organise a blue plaque celebration, they produce a fantastic booklet which is available to buy if you go on the Oxton Society website. The Blue Plaque Scheme is designed to celebrate significant people who have a link to Oxton. And Capt George Edward Schultz is one of those people, and we'll hear more about him from his grandson shortly. But this booklet, which is a fantastic piece of research, has been put together by John and Bob Knowles and financed by them. And it's available for you to pick up. If you want to make a small donation, you can. So the next thing I'm going to do is just to invite Dominic to say a few words. He's the owner, and without him, none of this will be possible.
Thank you, Jeff. 4 areas to thank. Firstly, Commanding Officer and Captain for coming, attending and unveiling. Much appreciated. Sarah, Seb and I live in the house, and we've been really fortunate to enjoy the house over the last 20 years. The second thank you is to everybody who's come. Thank you very much. We were slightly hesitant about the weather, but I think we've got thereabouts. Thirdly, the Oxton Society, which having been an Oxton community member for 20 years, having lived here since 2001, what a lovely place to live. And the Oxton Society do so much for our fantastic community that it should be supported, so please do. But lastly, John and the family, who have done fantastic work in recognising George. But I thought your article on Radio Merseyside didn't just talk about George, it talked about everybody who committed and gave up so much. And I thought that was really powerful. I thought it was fantastic. If you haven't heard it, it's on Radio Merseyside yesterday morning, like just at 10:30, John, was it? give or take, so you can get it on BBC Sounds. But what a fantastic article, because this is a recognition of George, but it's a recognition of so many more people that did so much. John, the work you and your family have done is sensational, so thank you very much. Well done.
Well done, Tony. Well, Alan, step forward.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Alan Brain, one of the local councillors, and I would great timing. Here's the rain. Here we go. So thank you all very much for coming. I'll keep it short in view of the downpour here. We have obviously a number of these blue plaques around Oxton, but one of them already celebrates a military hero. That's the one for Sir Philip Toosey, Brigadier Toosey and Rhodes Mount. Locally, we do have a number of war memorials. They're in the local churches, in Christchurch and in St Saviour's. Visibly, outside, there's one at Trinity with Palm Grove, which is my own church, and you can see the memorial there for some of the local people who gave their lives in the First World War. Most of these people were not national heroes in that sense, but they were local heroes. And the plaque that's going to be unveiled in a moment is another tribute to one of those heroes. It was fascinating reading the booklet that John and Bob have produced and reading about Bigland's Birkenhead Bantams. And it truly struck me that I, with all my height, would have not been able to qualify for the Bantams because you have to be between 5 foot and 5'3", and I'm far too tall. So I think I've probably gone on long enough, but so thank you all very much for coming. Thank you for all those who have organised this event, and I'll now hand over to
George.
George.
John.
Unbelievable.
You're doing well at timing.
Thank you very much, Alan. My brother Michael and I grew up knowing very little about our grandfather. He died on the Western Front when our own father was only one. The one thing we had done was visit his grave in France. My interest in him was rekindled when my wife Susan was over there and I moved to Merseyside, and we chose Oxton for our very first house. I made a point of tracking down the house where George had been born, and also the house around the corner at 13 Alton Road, where he later moved to. So is that a second blue plaque coming up?
Yes, you can afford it.
And actually I was on the Oxton Society committee in 1979 when it was first set up. So in many ways this has all sorts of lovely associations for us. The approach of the centenary of the First World War provided a spur to my brother and me to research the life and war service of our grandfather more properly, and I ended up writing a biography. And in the process I discovered a great deal about the Bantams, who've had deserved mention already this morning. He was very, very proud of the short men who served under him. Details of in the official Bantam battalion diary, I discovered that my grandfather had actually written it for 5 months, day by day or night by night in the trenches, and that allowed Michael and me to know exactly where he'd been every day, and we went round 100 years after his death and visited all those sites, including the hill where he was fatally wounded. He was very much a Birkenhead stalwart and a Cheshire Regiment stalwart, because he wasn't just in the Bantams when the First World War broke out, but he'd been a volunteer in the Birkenhead Rifles as a young man, where I think the drinking and the playing with guns probably appealed. Sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I think that would probably rather appeal to him as a young man. And he hurried back from Canada on the outbreak of the First World War to sign up, but it was back to Birkenhead, and that's where he wanted to sign up. We know from a fellow officer's personal diary that he was seen as dutiful, brave, reliable, and cheerful in adversity. In other words, he was a typical Birkenhead Bantam. We make no claim at all that he was more of a hero than the others, but we're dead proud of him. And we're proud to see the Oxton Society choose him to be the representative of all the other Birkenhead Bantams who served and those who don't. Thank you very much.
Okay, good afternoon all. I've got a hat on, so I'm not shy again. My name is Major Paul Hands, and I'm the officer commanding of 234 Wibble Squadron, which is basically a 5-minute walk up the hill in Oxton. And believe it or not, it's not a drinking club anymore. It's a professional reserve army. We've got lots of activities operationally, and every now and then we enjoy a nice football. I'm very proud to be there. I'm going to quickly speak about, I think about 45 minutes, so if you don't mind, on why actually we remember, why do we remember these people that have gone before us, and what was the point of remembering something that happened 100 years ago. And for me, there's plenty of different reasons on why we're here today, why we remember those that have gone before us. One, for John and your family, it's a personal reason, clearly. So it's a family member that gave his life the ultimate sacrifice during the First World War. And it's an incredibly proud story. And I've actually read the memoir about half a dozen times now. And how that man didn't actually get a mention to statues. Certainly his actions then would have definitely been an award today. But it goes to show back Jordan at the time in the century how difficult it was to actually be elevated to be an award. Everyone was going through it. Extremely tough times. For Dom, the homeowner, a beautiful house. Clearly for you, you're now the proud owner of a blue plaque. And that's fantastic. And I don't know about you people, but I can't walk past the blue plaque without stopping, getting my phone open, getting onto Google and reading about it. It really, my wife hates it. But I'll stand there and I'll probably take a photograph. So please, I apologise about the many people that I walk past and probably stop and just read about George, but that's actually why we do it. For me, the reason I choose to remember is I love the individual stories. History is a story. And the individual stories of all these people that have prepared themselves to go to war, and then what happened during the war makes the bigger picture. The Battle of the Somme is a massive story to try and explain. But when you pick the individual people, like George, it brings it to life. And after reading his memoir, I was really, even though it was over 100 years ago, and it was a war much harder than anyone I've been to, it was frightening the similarities that actually myself and George have as reserve army officers. I've got a 1-year-old son, and his name's George. I'm currently living in Formby. I've travelled only temporarily because of the house market at the moment, and I believe your grandfather lived in Formby for a short time. Obviously, we're both volunteers in the British Army. We're both from the Oxton area, and we both like to go abroad and get into a bit of trouble. We both honeymooned in Scotland, believe it or not. We both like a tipple, I think it's fair to say. If you do get involved in this kind of line of work, then that comes with it. We call it team bonding, to be fair. And both of our fellow officers call us chumpy and cheery. And I think that George is called that, I'm certainly called that amongst my fellow officers. But for other people, I think the act of remembrance can mean bigger things. Certainly in this community, there's a great sense of pride in what this community and the wider Wales did during the Great Wars. Just from where we stand, I like to call it the military triangle. It's a short walk in that direction to Birkenhead Park. It was the first branch of the British Legion across the whole country. Great bit of history. And I'm not going to be a history book because there's a lot of people out here that know much more than me. But that's just a short walk that way. A short walk to the right is Christchurch, where obviously Wilfred Owen, the most famous First World War poet, used to go to church. His father taught at the Sunday school there. And his house is just a short walk from Christchurch. So just in that little triangle, we've got great stories of during the Great War. And obviously not too far away is Birkenhead Town Hall. And that's where the story of the Birkenhead Bantams really started. And the local MP was fed up really of seeing short men who were fit and healthy being turned away from volunteering to duty. Turned away just because they weren't tall enough. You know, we've come a long way from those days. Now, regardless of sex, creed, you know, whatever, it's a completely modern army. Back in those days, there's clearly lots of different restrictions. But the Birkenhead Bantams were clearly formed because he seen there's a lot of men that were willing to fight, and they went out to that war and did amazing work. Now, I've served with Gurkhas on operations, and believe me, short men can fight, because there's no argument when it comes to that war. Getting a bit wet and sticky. So, I do believe we've all got different reasons in remembering those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. But regardless of what those reasons are, I think how we remember and why we remember is the main thing, is they won't be forgotten. Going down the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Thank you. Without further ado, I'm very proud and honoured to be able to unveil this blue plaque. If you'd like to come in, maybe get some photographs. We've spared no money in the cape. But there we go.
Thanks very much, Paul. Well done. Great story. What I forgot to mention was that Dominic and his wife Sarah have put on some refreshments for us. And the rain's stopping, the sun's coming out, so help yourselves.
Okay.
Thanks, Constance.
Thank you very much, everyone. Awesome. Now I just leave